A phalanx of football people here in the studio tonight. I just simply haven't enough time to mention everybody. Can I single out a couple? First of all, Alec MacDonald, the manager of Hearts, who are going very strongly in the league. And the gentleman who went from Stirling to Love Street and in his first season won the Scottish Cup and is still wearing a broad smile, Alex Smith. Well, on Saturday afternoon, the World Cup draw is made in Zurich. Smoothly, I hope. Now, as a nation, we do more than passingly well in that competition. For our size and resources, our record bears comparison with almost anybody. Well, we can hardly say the same of a European Championship record, which ended, as we all know, on Wednesday night with the folk of Luxembourg in the mood to declare a national holiday after earning a point from us. This all fits the uncanny pattern that's existed after the last 4 World Cups, when Europe seems to have been no more than a breathing space for various national teams. So it hasn't been an outstanding year in that sense. But then, we're always in the mood to welcome Brazilians, as we did to Hampden in May for the Rouse Cup.
Great pace again there by Nelsinho. Goal! That was almost decent. It was Rye. The tall figure of Rye opens the scoring for Brazil. This could be very dangerous. Look at this. Oh, dear, dear, dear. Wide gap, Valdo going in. There's Valdo. He can pick his spot and does.
Andy Roxburgh, ladies and gentlemen. Andy, it is certainly not an easy job, and it never has been an easy job. But would you prefer the very strongest nations in the draw on Saturday?
Well, yes, there's sometimes a problem when we play the weaker nations, as you know, historically. That's been the difficulty. I think probably be wise for us to go for West Germany, Spain, France and England, although I think that might be a bit unfair on England.
Well, not England. That's too easy for us. I mean, we think of something much more difficult than that. You like the spirit of the team, though. You've had wins, and that's very important for you.
Yes, I think the first thing is that we're becoming a team that's difficult to beat. The fact that we've had 8 shutouts in 11 matches proves that point. In some of the games we've also proved that we can score goals. Young Alistair here in particular has shown that. And hopefully, as we develop, we'll become a team that's not only hard to beat, but one that wins.
Andy, I'd love to talk to you all night. There's a man frantically waving me to. Thank you very much indeed, the very best of luck.
You're welcome.
Art Glass. It was a year in which football news found as much space in the front pages of newspapers as the back. It wasn't just football commentators and journalists who lined up to make comments on the game, but leader writers, police, sociologists and those financial specialists intrigued to know if some of our clubs have dug a secret tunnel straight into the Bank of England. Well, all that glitters is not gold, though. Europe was witness to 24-carat performances from a club which seems to take inspiration from being written off by folk, which is, of course, what happened when out of the hat with Dundee United in UEFA Cup came a name that reeks of opulence, Barcelona.
A rare sight indeed, Ibrox empty. The phenomenal growth of a club which decided to stake its future on an enormous financial gamble is now barely big enough to cope with demand. And the crop of English stars, even on a damp New Year's Day, began to show dividends. The emphasis on bolstering defence. Chris Wood's class, especially to opponents, painfully evident. Graham Roberts, never anonymous, the lone, sturdy presence that constantly lingers near controversy, proved nevertheless to be a brilliant defender come occasional attacker. But the linchpin was the captain, Terry Butcher. Appropriately, his header won the championship at Pittodrie. The league championship flag was to have English football subtitles, and they were to read that cross-border transfers were never to be one way again. The Skull Cup final turned out to be the kind of theatre that would run to full houses for years if replayed every night. Aberdeen were first on stage, and Jim Beck remained cool. Rangers didn't reply. They exploded. Davy Cooper's left foot ignited the fuse. Then the man of the match emerged. 20-year-old Ian Durrant, with a masterly sense of pace and position, and with a little help from a friend. Aberdeen, far from dump, found their balance through the man whose goals always seemed to be significant, John Hewitt. Then suddenly, when time was running short, Willie Faulkner found spring in his legs, direction with his head. Extra time always seemed likely, and it was duly confirmed when McCoist and Flex saw the apparition of defeat and dispelled it with a dynamic response. No more goals, and the penalty shootout became a shredding of nerves, particularly those of a Welshman. The cup went to Ibrox, the single honour and the climax to Durant. Graham Roberts, substitute captain, but the genuine article in the day. The first time he had seen Rangers was when he watched last season's final from the stand. It's funny what not having to pay your way into a game produces.
First cup of the season for Rangers. Now, Rangers are, of course, at this very minute jetting their way out to the desert to play Everton. But that's not a mirage you can see behind me. It is actually the real Ali McCoist. Rangers without Ali, that's like Batman without Robin. However, Rangers supporters can ease their minds. Tomorrow, Ali will be on the back of a camel with 4-field drive to get him to that oasis in time where waits patiently the gaffer, Mr. Souness, who, looking back over 1987 for us, pinpoints that stage of the season when he felt Rangers had got things right.
Yeah, I think at the turn of the year we realised we'd started to get a team playing regularly. You know, we had our problems before that with suspensions and injuries and things, and we started to get to feel the same team week in, week out. And really we got better and better from Christmas time. I only hope we can do the same this year as well.
I think you'd be the first to admit that what you have lacked this season is the consistency that you showed.
Well, I think now the last 2 weeks, we're nearly halfway through the season, and I think the last 2 weeks has been the first time we've been able to field the same side twice. So we're in the same situation last year. You know, we couldn't get the same 11 out on the field, and I'm hoping at the turn of the year, with the exception of possibly Terry Butcher, who will be March, if we can get that again, then I'd be hopeful again we can go on and improve our league position, and then anything's possible.
Well, you've enjoyed the highs this season and retaining the Skol Cup.
And a few lows, yeah.
Yeah, how's that affected the squad?
I think last year it showed people talk about character in the game, and I don't think you can emphasise that too much. We showed, after losing to Hamilton, a game we should never have lost. We lost that, and then we managed to bounce back the following week, and I think we dropped Hearts 5-1 away from home. And really, although I wouldn't like it to happen again this year, that was a timely reminder to us, the amount of work we had to do. And the lads responded ever so well after that. As I say, hopefully we don't need that reminder this year.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ali McCoist. That's always music to your ears, isn't it? Getting applause. You get it yesterday at Ibrox for that penalty.
That's right, yeah. A wee bit lucky, but...
Tell me, is it exactly the same as last year? I think your manager there has been drawing parallels.
Yeah, I think it's true what he said earlier on there was we have lacked a little bit of consistency this season, but with 1 or 2, we don't like to labour on the point of injuries, but we have had 1 or 2 injuries, and hopefully, like he said, the last 2 games we've only fielded the same side.
But you enjoyed last season, and winning the championship must have been intensely memorable for you.
Last season was a fabulous season actually, and I think it climaxed up at Tawdry the day we actually won the championship.
You apparently enjoyed the bus ride back.
Yeah, I said I've been quoted as saying 3-hour journey wasn't actually long enough, and it was a bit of a journey home.
They tell me you're into the mouth music though, that you entertain the punters with that.
No, I was under a bit of pressure. It was a wee cause for charity, and if
I know, I think you're very, very modest. I'm told you're highly talented. Now, we have producers here from various departments. How would you like to give us an example of it? Go on. Judge, you've got exactly 10 seconds to make up. This could be the start of a new career.
I don't really think I could do it, Archie, sorry.
You could? No, I would embarrass you.
A little bit, yeah.
Listen, I know you're sitting beside other football dignitaries. Would you dare to make a forecast for the championship?
I still think we'll do it, yes, I do.
I know you're going to Dubai, aren't you?
Off tomorrow, yeah. Early shuttle down to London, then we're flying out to Dubai.
It's all high-per jet stuff now for Rangers, isn't it?
Well, looking forward to the game. The game's Tuesday, we play Everton, so we're looking forward to that.
I'm never going to look at you again. You said you would do that for me. Give us a mouth music. 5 seconds.
I'll let you down now. I'm sorry, I can't do it.
Ali, thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thanks very much.
Archie. Well, yeah, I'll tell you what, I would have seen what's happening under that car doing that back axle. They would have got the award right away. Pity, boys. Pity, you're not competing. But what sort of criteria did we use to select the Team of the Year? After all, straightforward success is the obvious one. Win, and to you it shall be granted. But there's another ingredient, that which you might describe as capturing the imagination of people. Not an easy thing to do in this rather cynical age, but one of the great victories of the year was by a team which proved that winning, although desirable, is not the only prize, even in their highly commercial world. achieving countrywide admiration and sympathy must surely be an even more enduring quality. That's why, for their notable performances in Europe, 1987 will be synonymous with the name of Dundee United. So you don't need to be Sherlock Holmes to work out why we have a camera in Dundee tonight. You can see it, hopefully, at the back there. We're at the Angus Hotel in Dundee. It's a very special dinner there. It's for the Dundee player, of course, and I can see a man. I think I can see a man. Yes, I do. I do recognise him. And he's going to make a presentation for us. And it's a gentleman, Andy Cameron. I'm surprised he's there, actually, because I thought he was never any further east than Copeland Road.
Good evening, Archie, and welcome to the Angus Hotel in Dundee. We're celebrating Jim Duffy's testimonial dinner. There's a crowd of 400 at the dinner, and it's quite a good turnout. There's players from all over Great Britain, players from Celtic, Aberdeen, Dundee themselves, and a team that I haven't mentioned for one reason, because we're here to award the Team of the Year, the Sports Scene Team of the Year to Dundee United. They did a tremendous job for Scotland by beating Borussia Mönchengladbach and Barcelona and getting to the UEFA Cup final. They also got to the Scottish Cup final. The fact that they won neither means nothing, because they're the proudest team in Scotland. We're delighted to present this trophy to the man, and I'm not going to guarantee a laugh, but he's here anyway. Mr. McLean, would you accept this? How about a round of applause for Jim McLean? You're welcome. Now, would you like to say thank you into this microphone here? We'll put a shilling in it and everything.
Well, obviously, after 16 years in football, we could be excused for thinking that these things weren't going to happen to the likes of myself. But obviously, the achievement of the players last season was tremendous. I think it was good for, obviously, Dundee United, but I think equally it was good for Scottish football. And I would like to pay tribute to, in particular, the last few rounds when all over Scotland the support and the letters we received from Celtic supporters, Rangers supporters, we had everybody in Scotland behind us. And in my opinion, it honestly helped a little. But even the media and Andy Cameron's mates through in Glasgow were right behind us as well. But we had a terrific time, and obviously it was a great experience for me to be part of it. And again, I would just pay tribute to the players who were definitely magnificent last season.
Thanks very much, Jim. Ladies and gentlemen, the Team of the Year, Jim McLean's Dundee United. Back to you, Archie.
Well done, Dundee United, and if Celtic do happen to win the championship this year, we'll ask Andy to do exactly the same thing next season. Now to the
time, there's a few sportsmen around here tonight are very anxious to know the name inside that envelope. Can I ask you to open and reveal all?
And before I reveal the name, there's a couple of things to say. There were 32 different Scottish sportsmen and women represented in the voting, but there were just 4 that featured most heavily of the many thousands of viewers' postcards. Only a couple of 100 votes separated them at the finish. Those 4 were Jimmy McRae, Ali McCoist, Alex Dixon and Stephen Hendry. And the outright winner of the BBC Sports Scene Personality of 1987 was Ali McCoist.
Thanks very much. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, could I say that this is probably the most prestigious award I've ever received, and it means an awful lot to me. And it goes without saying, I'd like to thank a few people. First and foremost, I'd like to thank my close family, my friends, and everybody over at Ibrox Park, Glasgow Rangers Football Club, and of course the Scottish national coach, Andy Roxburgh. I don't really know what to say at the moment, but I'd just like to thank everybody once again. Thanks very much.
Well done, Ali. Ladies and gentlemen, Ali McCoist is the Sports Scene Personality of 1987. From all of us here, a very good night to you.
from sounding too apprehensive about that, although I certainly wouldn't be making wild predictions at this stage. Now, we even pinned down Bobby Robson for a comment afterwards. The English team manager, who was hardly drained by the draw he received, said this of Scotland's section.
Well, I would say that gives Scotland a very good chance indeed. Obviously, France and Yugoslavia will be the dangers, but you mustn't discount Norway. But it's in Scotland's hands. But
that, I assure you, that was Bobby Robson. It wasn't the bottle talking. I'm sorry about that shot, Bobby, if you're looking in. Hope we have the recording of that. Now, to our two guests, John Greig and Jim Craig. Let's look at the section in a little bit of detail, starting, if you like, at the bottom up. I hope I'm not discrediting Cyprus, but one would assume that they would be the weakest side there in the group. John, you played twice against them, didn't you?
Yes, that was the 68-69, leading up to the 70 World Cup. We won 5-0 in Nicosia and 8-0 at Hampden.
You know,
Steen scored a bit before that.
Exactly. Yeah. Somebody tells me that's the last time a Scottish player scored a hat-trick in an international.
Well, let's hope it's a good omen, Archie. But that should be a game we should win 4 points. We should take 4 points from that country.
But we do have a habit, Jim, do we not, of, it seems to be a Scottish characteristic, of coming a cropper when least expected. And Norway, I think, would be a better team than Cyprus.
Yes, one of the ones that we, as you say, come a cropper against. I think that the bottom line, actually, is that we were second seeds and very nearly third seeds in this particular competition, and we have to judge all the other teams on that basis, that there have been at least 7 teams seeded better than we are. Norway, I certainly think, will give us a hard game. But they were our first opponents ever in a foreign international match away back in 1929. We beat them 7-3, so let's hope that's a happy omen.
How did you get them? Tell us.
You played in the game.
You must be the only way you discovered that. Of the two, France and Yugoslavia, we've never been beaten by Yugoslavia, as I think that was rightly pointed out by Tony Gubber there, but they're always physically a tough team.
I think physically, and they've got great technique, great ball players in their team, actually. And I think it would be a difficult match, although I think the beauty of the whole section here is that we're capable of beating every one of these sides at Hampden.
And France obviously have a great deal of style and skill. I know the great players aren't there, Jim, any longer, the Platinis and so on, but they will be formidable.
Yes, I think that was an exceptional side. It had the real skills of Platini and also a very good manager at the time. And it's bound to rub off on the people who are coming through just now.
We can have a look at the record, in fact, Jim. There we are. That's it there. That's a very good record, in fact, and if you added it all up, which we very cunningly did, you'll find that we've played all these countries 24 times, and that we've only lost 4. That's a pretty good record, John.
Yeah, but we're good players in these days, Archie.
You're not referring to yourself, by any chance?
No, I'm too modest for that.
Yes, but I take it that, in any case, when you go into a new World Cup competition, Jim, you cannot look backwards to statistics at these as any indication.
Not at all. The thing that pleases me, actually, is that I think when Scotland are at a real disadvantage is that when you come up against blazing skill like Platini or some of the Italian stars or some of the Brazilians, that's when we are on a loser straight away. I think none of those teams will have that. And we are capable of beating anyone, as John quite rightly says.
Now, quite frankly, John, this cannot be done without some form of cooperation between club and country. Now, is Andy Roxburgh going to get a fair deal in the World Cup? I don't think he's had a fair deal recently.
Well, it's the old age story, isn't it? Club versus country. But I think in this situation now, the draw's been made, we're going into the warm-up games, I think Andy's got to get a hold of the clubs and say to them, look, we need your cooperation here. I'll have to get consistency in my team selections. I'll do my best for you and try and get games off on a Saturday previous to the World qualifying matches, and let's all get going for each other, because it is very important that we qualify for the World Cup finals.
And Jim, it's a very long, as I said at the start, it's a very long drawn-out competition. Some of the younger players not quoted now might be making the impact in 2 years' time.
Of course, it was for what, November 1889,
something
2
like
years
that,
away.
Yes.
But no, I think we all have to rally behind the team manager at this particular time. It would be dreadful if Scotland didn't qualify for something like that. We need to qualify for the final stages.
Well, let's have a look at how England fared.
Put Souness Stadium right away.
I like that kind of spirit, but overall happy to have a chance 2 out of 5. Is that another good point for us, do you think?
I think that's the main point in getting a 5-team group. That's it's so important to get every opportunity to qualify, and the fact that there's 2 go out that group, then let's hope we'll pull our sleeves up, and I'm sure we'll do it.
So genuine optimism that you'll be leading the squad to Italy in 1990?
Well, that'd be great. As I say, it's always been it's a great ambition to play in the last World Cup. If I can lead the squad to the next World Cup, that would just do me fine.
Let's hope it happens.
Yes, indeed, we'll all go along with that. Roy, thank you very much for coming in. Well, that's the task which Scotland faced to make it 5 World Cups in a row, and we await the dates for the qualifying matches with intense interest. Meantime, we are back tomorrow at 2:30 when our programme comes from Murrayfield Ice Rink in Edinburgh. We'll be looking ahead via Jock Brown to Wednesday's European Cup quarter-final draw, bringing you the action from the Scottish Cup ice hockey match between Murrayfield Racers and Ayr Bruins, and of course the final of the Foster's World Double Snooker Championship from Northampton with Stephen Henry and Mike Hallett taking on the favourites Cliff Thorburn and Dennis Taylor, and of course coverage of that final continues right after this programme. Well, tomorrow promises to be a busy afternoon of sport, and it all begins at 2:30. From all of us here in the studio, goodbye and good night.
Glasgow's Albany Hotel, and we were all delighted that our own marathon man Arthur Montford was one of the recipients of a special award to mark 30 years of stewardship of British television's longest running sports programme.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Scottsport, Arthur Montford.
It was a record-breaking year for swimmers Ruth Gilfillan and Jean Hill. Last week, a national squad get-together next weekend. His enthusiasm, though, is matched by his energy.
Andy, just back from Washington, and now an expert on gridiron football as well.
Hardly, yes. I was at the Redskins match last week, and it was superb. Wonderful atmosphere, and it's a very, very interesting game indeed, American football. I don't think we'll be taking it up, but maybe there's one or two of our players could maybe take it up. One or two are robust enough.
Any lessons our game can learn from the razzmatazz that goes on over there?
Well, the marketing and the selling of it is obviously superb. I mean, at the Redskins Stadium, I think it was the 30s the last time that it wasn't a full house. So that tells you something about the way they put it over. There's a lot of the frills that you couldn't do in Scotland. I think people would be put off by them. But I'm sure people could learn a lot of the marketing techniques.
Who do you think will win the Super Bowl now? Presumably you'll be rooting for the Redskins.
Well, I'm back with all of the colour scheme stuff. It's the Motherwell colours, and so I think we'll be rooting for the Redskins, yes.
And your football, you've got to get together with the Scottish squad coming up. Everything going all right in that direction?
Yeah, significantly, that's also on Super Bowl day, so that'll no doubt be part of the get-together. I know some of the lads like to watch that. Yes, that'll get the lads together and get them chatting and get the team spirit going and get ourselves set up for a long, hard season ahead. A season, of course, which will start our campaign in the World Cup.
So the message to the players is if you come to that meeting, you can stay up until 3 o'clock in the morning.
Well, we'll see. Maybe to half-time.
The end of the season brings retirement to one of Scotland's best-known referees, Alan Ferguson from Giffnock. Safe to say that he's going to miss being the man in the middle.
Alan, you're coming towards the end, alas, of a very distinguished career. I wonder if you're looking back on it, if you've actually enjoyed it all.
Yes, I'm certainly leaving it very reluctantly, as you can imagine. After devoting 20 years to the game, to ask a referee to retire simply on the basis of age is very hard to take.
You feel that there might be room for a change in the legislation without in any way trying to be controversial about it?
Well, certainly I would say that referees in the last few years have kept themselves fitter. And they have been a bit more professional in their dedication to the sport than they were perhaps 15 or 20 years ago. And on that basis, perhaps there is room for looking at the retiral age and perhaps even allowing certain individuals to continue if they are either fit enough or competent enough to do so.
Bill Shankly used to say that football wasn't just a matter of life and death, it was more important than that, and I guess we all know that quote. But I wonder if you've noticed football becoming perhaps more competitive in the time that you've been at the top.
Well, I think the media have been a little bit severe on the standards of refereeing in the last few years. Very unfairly, I might add. I think probably what has happened is that the game is much more physical now, certainly in the last 10 years than it's ever been. And referees are being asked to cope with that physical side of football, which they didn't have 15 or 20 years ago. There isn't any question that it's faster and there is more aggro and there's more physical contact in the game, and it's making it extremely difficult for referees to cope with it.
Some interesting points there from Alan Ferguson. Well, the Sportswoman of the Year vote was solidly behind golfer Dale Reid to Rangers Football Club, whose victory in the Skol Cup final climaxed one of the best Scottish matches of modern times. It was just one happy memory for Chairman David Holmes and his team.
David Holmes, 1987 was a great year for Rangers, but there's no peace in this world. Is 1988 going to be even better?
Well, it'll not be any better. I think we always said that what we're trying to do is to build a team, and we gave ourselves 3 years. Success came a bit quick, but we're going to consolidate this year and hopefully keep going and get more success.
The European Cup tie coming up, is that top of your list of priorities?
No. European, that makes it nice, and it's exciting for the fans, but top of our priority must always be the league. This is where we make enough money to spend and buy players and keep the people happy.
Walter, of all the matches in 1987, the one I enjoyed most was the Skol Cup final. Does that come top of your list?
Yeah, I think so. It's a game that had everything for the spectators. A few heart attacks on the bench that day. But even at that, I think it was a great match, and I think it's one that everybody would like to see again.
How is the team at the moment? Are you ready for the big part of the season?
Yeah, hopefully we're coming into a part of the season where we've all settled down and get a team. It's been very difficult this season because we've had to legislate for European Cup games where we had players suspended, we had injuries. We've had different things that have stopped us getting any consistency in the play. But hopefully going into the latter part of the season we'll manage to get that.
He's been likened to Oor Willie. He could be the boy next door. He's the quiet man of the world of snooker. And he's Scotland's Sportsman of the Year, Stephen Henry from Edinburgh. And they say he's going to get better. For the quarter-finals at stake. Let's rejoin our commentator, Jock Brown.
Oh, it was great. It's a great game. Some tremendous goals. Just pleased to get the win. I think we needed it. So I think we get through, so I'm quite pleased with that.
You have got through. I mean, some people might think you just turn up here on a Sunday afternoon for a day out. I mean, that was played just like any Premier League match.
Oh, it went at a good pace, and the boys played really well, so I'll make up for Saturday being off, so they've done really well.
Absolutely. You're back again tomorrow night. Do you think St Mirren can win?
Well, the way we played tonight, I think we could go all the way maybe. So just keep our fingers crossed and hope we can keep the form up.
And on the general front, after all the hassles of the last few months, you're obviously enjoying your football again.
Oh, well, I've just got to get back and playing and just keep playing for St Mirren. That's my main ambition now, is just to keep playing for St Mirren until things happen, you know.
Well, we enjoyed that. Thanks for all the fun.
Oh, it was great. It was great.
Thanks.
Well, a narrow but very important victory for St Mirren, and clearly a delighted with hard work to Ian Ferguson. Ian Archer now summarises this afternoon's games.
The 7,000 crowd who came into the Scottish Exhibition Centre here in Glasgow this afternoon for the first round of the Tennant Sixes have gone. But there'll be the same number coming back this evening. And I can tell you one thing, if the next round of matches are as good as the first, there won't be any complaints at all from that crowd. Here's how it went this afternoon. In the top half of the draw, Aberdeen and Dundee qualified quite comfortably. They both beat Morton, who sadly played to their Premier League form. In fact, Dundee scored 9 against the Capello men. Charlie Nicholas opened with the first 2 goals of the tournament against the same Morton. The other group was much closer, and the last game of the session, a real thriller. Hearts and St Mirren knew the losers would go out, and what a game it was. The Paisley side won it 5-4, and they'll be joined tomorrow by Motherwell. So today's qualifiers so far, Aberdeen, Dundee, St Mirren and Motherwell. Tonight, the last 2 groups, Celtic, Dunfermline and Hibs in one of them, Nottingham Forest, Dundee United and Falkirk in the other. After this afternoon's excitement, I don't know if I can take another session, but we'll have to, and really good fun it is too. It may be warm and comfortable indoors, but this game's been played with all the passion you'd expect in the Premier League, outside on a Saturday.
Thanks, Ian. Well, time now for the sports headlines out with the SECC. Golf and American...
I'm certain all our viewers as well to Sally McNair, who has swapped typewriter for talcum with the birth of her first child, a daughter, Abby Clare. To Sally and husband Phil, we send all our congratulations. Well, we're back tonight with
Football Club, scheduled to be broadcast tonight on Scotland Today, will not now be shown. Following discussions with Channel 4, the interview has been withdrawn. A spokesman for Scottish Television said, "We were commissioned to go to California to make a programme for the Channel 4 series Scottish Eye." Lawrence Marlborough was present at the location and he was asked a number of questions about Rangers, which he freely answered. However, as the interview with Mr Marlborough conflicts with a project on Rangers for the same series, Channel 4, who own the copyright, have withdrawn their permission for us to use it. Well, now sport. In Scotland's opening World Cup warm-up match against Saudi Arabia ended disappointingly for coach Andy Roxburgh. The details in a moment, plus rugby news from Don Lindsay.
First of all, details of a disappointment in the desert for Andy Roxburgh. That's the way this afternoon's friendly in Riyadh ended, a 2-each draw. The Saudis opened the scoring in the first half to lead 1-0 at the break, but 2 goals shortly after half-time put the Scots in front. Maurice Johnston headed the first before the 20-year-old Hibs midfield man John Collins scored with a brilliant free kick on his international debut. Saudi Arabia got the equaliser midway through the second half. It was a lacklustre show by Scotland, but Andy Roxburgh must have been happy to see Collins do so well in his first international. The two Hearts players, Henry Smith and John Cahoon, also won their first caps.
While in Riyadh, Scotland drew 2-2 with Saudi Arabia. There have been no goals so far in the match between Greece and Northern Ireland.
Have drawn with Saudi Arabia in the first international between the two countries. The World Cup warm-up game finished 2-each with goals by Maurice Johnson and John Collins. Indeed, Collins entered the record books as the first Hibs player since Laurie Riley 31 years ago to score for Scotland.
The Saudis played the better football early on, and with just 15 minutes gone, they almost took the lead.
Joseph Jaza. Jim Leighton using all his international experience. Great free kick from Jaza.
But Leighton's brilliance at the free kick was overshadowed by a misjudgment at the resultant corner.
There's the corner. Saudi Arabia have scored.
The scorer Jaza in 16 minutes. Scotland's best chance in the first half fell after half an hour to Frank McAvenny. Cahoon, McLeish and Smith came on for Nicholl, Miller and Leighton after the break, and only 2 minutes had gone when McStay set up his former teammate Maurice Johnston.
Stays cross for Johnson. That's the equaliser for Scotland.
That lifted Scottish confidence, and just 3 minutes later, John Collins was just inside the box when tripped. The referee awarded a free kick almost on the 18-yard line. Collins himself took the kick and found a gap in the wall for Scotland to take the lead.
Oh, yes! What a sizzling strike for Scotland.
But the Saudis weren't finished. With 20 minutes left, Scotland again looked disorganised at the back.
Majid Abdullah. The equaliser for Saudi Arabia. Majid Abdullah.
2-2, and 5 minutes later, Saudi Arabia had a chance to seal it.
Jaza wins it. There's a chance to make it 3-2. Blasted over by Sagri.
And 10 minutes from time, another opportunity for the home side.
Enfield now towards Harvey.
But there was no further scoring, and Andy Roxburgh now has to look at ways of sorting out the defensive lapses, which so nearly cost the game.
Well, someone who's happier about a lot of draws is a woman pensioner from the west of Scotland who wished to remain anonymous because she's won a share of the biggest pools payment ever made. Almost £2 million was paid out, with 996,854 of them going to the pensioner.
Desperately trying to look for a few bright spots in what was a dramatically disappointing Scottish performance, John. That really was disgraceful, wasn't it?
Well, let me say, Dougie, it's easy to sit here and criticise, but I've got to be fair and honest here. I don't believe what people says about Saudi Arabia being difficult to beat in their own patch. I think Scotland are a good enough side to go there and get a result. And from thinking I could win the match before a ball was kicked, I think in the second half of the 2 chances they missed, we were fortunate to get a draw.
Yes, it doesn't bear thinking about if Majid in particular had taken that chance near the end there, defeat to Saudi Arabia. And the significant thing is that we now go to Malta for a match we'll talk about in a moment. But that, as you pointed out, watching it, is very similar to the situation we'll find in Cyprus in the World Cup qualifying.
Well, like Billy McNeill, I find it difficult to think what we learnt from that game. Apart from the blooding of the young players, but what did they prove in a performance like that today? It was a bad game at the end of the day for young players to go in. All it means is they've played one game for Scotland. But I don't think it's really proved anything as far as anybody's international career is concerned. As far as the Cyprus game is concerned, coming up in the World Cup, the game in Malta will have to be treated with this in mind, this game today in mind. I think we've got to learn lessons today and take it into the next match in Malta and try and eradicate the problem. I think the biggest problem is standing back and knocking balls about and lowering the pace of the game to suit these kind of teams. I think we've got to go out, we've got to play the game quickly, we've got to work 11 players working very hard, hustling and closing players down very quickly, make them make mistakes and play the game at our pace.
I couldn't believe the room that we gave them today. We allowed them to look good.
Well, they've got a Uruguayan manager. They've just had a Brazilian manager before him. Obviously, they train all the time just the skills of the game. They're not into this physical contact or really competing at a high level in a high-pace game. So they're very comfortable in the ball. And if you stand back off them, they'll just knock the ball about all day. Now, I made the point at half-time that if we're going to play against the Brazils of this world, we can't play them at their game. They'll murder us. So we've got to try and play to our strengths.
Our natural game, which is hustle and bustle and upset people and don't give them room.
11 professionals working hard for each other and making their team. That's what the Premier League's all about. Just knocking the ball forward and making the other team make mistakes.
Well, let's have a look at some of the 3 goals in that second half. It all started so well, of course. We came out in the second half, a goal down, and scored 2 within the opening few moments. Here's the first of them. And I looked at this because Maurice Johnson looked to me to be a rather offside position when he scored there, John. What do you think?
Well, it's a bad angle there, Dougie, but I think the difference here from the first 45 minutes was with a midfield player getting wide with the ball and putting the ball across the face of the goals. All the balls in the first half came straight into the goals. This one came across the face of the goals, and obviously the Saudis are not too happy with that kind of ball, and Maurice Johnson managed to sneak in there and put the ball into the far post.
Right, there it is. Paul McStay, cross ball. Well, perhaps he's offside, perhaps he isn't, but the factor is at least we've run at them, we've got that early goal, and any team has a goal down at half-time. That's a perfect start to the second half, obviously.
Well, that's a manager's dream. I mean, obviously Andy's been unhappy at half-time, he's had a few words with some of them, maybe all of them, and he brought in John Cahoon, and this is the start they wanted. And as you can see, we spoke earlier in the programme that we had to get them pushing forward, the midfield players closing players down, giving better support to the front two. And they started the second half like that, and they got that goal there from their persistence and making the other team make mistakes.
Well, let's have a look at that second goal then. Scotland back in level terms at 1 each, and a couple of minutes later we were in front with, again, a beautifully struck ball by young John Collins making his international debut. He's got a good left foot, John, hasn't he?
Marvellous left foot. But I don't know what the wall was doing there. I mean, the goalkeeper put a wall in front of him there, but it just seemed to collapse as the young lad went forward and took the free kick. But a marvellous goal for the young lad, and despite the result today, and despite how badly Scotland played, that young lad will remember that goal the rest of his life.
Sure, he's got a great memory. As you said, it's difficult for young lads like Cahoon came in, Collins came in. In fact, we used all the substitute. We brought on Robert Connor near the end as well. Can we really decide that, yes, they're international players or not on the basis of one afternoon in Saudi Arabia?
Well, certainly you can't on today's performance. I think it was very unfair in the young lads, the way that some of the senior professionals played. At the end of the day, I was a little bit disappointed with one of the substitutions. I thought when Gary Mackay came on, I thought maybe it'd been better if we'd taken Roy Aitken off. And then we'd had 4 young players in the middle of the pack there who could play a bit. Mackay, Paul McStay, young Collins and Cahoon. And we could have seen how they played. We might have learnt something from that, but I was a little bit disappointed in that one.
Let's see the goal then, which finally gave Saudi the draw. And of course, having got 2-1 ahead and we're looking to push up and to put them under pressure, we seemed to take the foot off the accelerator for a while then, John, didn't we?
Yeah, well, we got in front and we went back to the old way we played in the first half, just containing the game, knocking the ball about again, instead of keeping the pressure on. I mean, we had them on the ropes. That's the time good sides finish them off.
Sure.
I thought we should really went at them then and really made them pay for the mistakes and killed the game with maybe another couple of quick goals. Right. But we started to keep possession of the ball again, knocking it about, and that's foreign to us. We don't like doing that.
Right. The defence didn't look too clever for the goal, though, we have to say.
Well, when you have 5 substitutions in a game, and it's a friendly game, you don't get the understanding in with the players. But this comes from nothing.
There it is, through he comes, knocks it past Henry Smith and just gets the foot to it ahead of Maurice Malpas. So that's Majid, that's the man that got the flat in France for scoring a winning goal. I don't know what he'll get for scoring the equaliser against Scotland in a full international. But a good striker's goal, you can't fault him at all, but I think you'll be looking at our defender and say he's never have had the chance to score there.
Well, I think we've got to look at the pace of the central defenders there, because that was a ball played through the middle, and the big striker there beat their entire defence to it, and Henry Smith obviously had not a lot to do in the second half since he came on. He got caught a little bit short there, and even Maurice Malpas, I think maybe the bounce of the ball or something beat Maurice there, because I thought Maurice had that covered.
So there it is, it finishes 2 each. Looking ahead, we've now got Malta in the next build-up match before the World Cup qualifying. What would you do in Malta, John? Would you now play what Andy presumably sees as his strongest team? Because he must have an idea in the back of his head, bring in perhaps the Gary Gillespies, maybe Ian Durrant, Derek White of Celtic. Or do you experiment further and maybe give the Gary Mackays and John Collins another run? What would you do?
Well, it's a very difficult one. I think I'd be inclined to try and play my strongest team to the formation that I would think would suit the team best. I'm afraid, I think as long as we play these friendly matches, he's still going to get bored with the call-offs. That being the case, then I think it's wise for him now to try and still experiment a little bit for the next game and hope that we can learn something at least from today's 90 minutes and put it into operation for the next match. But I honestly don't think, Dougie, at the moment we will have a full complement of players for the friendly games.
Yes, that's a sad fact. I tell you what, the press boys will be glad to get home, won't they? There'll be nothing to oil the creative wheels tonight after that match, because it's dry out there, isn't it?
It certainly is, Dougie, but knowing some of my press colleagues, I think they've got enough in their veins to keep them going for a few weeks.
I can tell you, incidentally, we're hoping to see some highlights of the England match. They're out in Israel this afternoon. At half-time, that was goalless, so England obviously aren't getting it too easy out in Tel Aviv either.
No, and Scotland's played there on a couple of occasions and had hard matches as well. I think Israel are a far better international side than Saudi Arabia.
Sure.
I mean, you could see there that the Saudis were playing for time long before the final whistle. But
so there's no easy games at international level these days. That's probably what we're coming to.
There's no easy games, Dougie, but I think the English team are probably about 2 years more prepared for the World Cup than we are, because they have more or less a settled side now.
That's the difference. Anyway, thanks for the moment, John. We're going to turn away from football, although, as I say, hopefully we'll have...
The story of the week has been Rangers' £1 million signing of Ian Ferguson, the man who won the Scottish Cup for St Mirren last season. Ferguson, though, is cup-tied for today's match against Dunfermline at East End Park, and that has got to help the Fifers, who have had very little to shout about since those halcyon days of the 60s.
Out come Celtic in their ring shirts, ready for the replay at Hampden Park. Dunfermline in striped shirts were equally resolved to get a favourable result this time. Dunfermline won the toss, and perhaps this was a good omen. After that no-goal draw, of course, Celtic were not such hot favourites for the Cup. They showed up well, however, in the early phase of the match, while 87,000 spectators shouted encouragement or advice. Presently, counter-attacking, Dunfermline were rewarded in the 67th minute with a goal by Thompson. Celtic came back strongly, but the Fifers kept them out. And finally, 2 minutes from time, Dunfermline got another, scored by Dixon. So there it was, the Cup for Dunfermline. A triumph indeed, the first time they'd won the Scottish Cup final this century. A magnificent effort.
Well, Ian, as a Scot, you'll know that it was that cup win which launched a young Jock Stein on an unsuspecting soccer world. And here at the home of golf, St Andrews, another Dunfermline boss is preparing for more cup glory, this time against Rangers. Jim Leishman may have a team trying to survive in the Premier League, but Rangers hold no terrors for him or his team. And like Stein, he believes in class. He says we may not have a £7 million team, but I believe in my boys feeling like millionaires. And this week they have, in a town still haunted by ghosts of the past. The Old Course Hotel, St Andrews, usually plays host to such as Nicholas, Ballesteros and Trevino. Golfing greats both old and new adorn the walls, and Leishman hopes the fame will touch his men in their preparations for their biggest cup tie in years. Leishman is one of the game's great characters. His players have been serenaded country and western style before matches, and no team talk would be the same without a poetry reading.
Right, lads, as usual, I've got a wee poem for the Rangers match, so if you sit with us for a minute, and I'll go through it.
No.
Oh Lord, we know the dangers. Each time you go and play the Rangers. Dunfermline 2, the Rangers 1. What a thrill to beat the Souness man.
At times too, unusual, Jim, isn't it, to find a football manager who behaves like that, and he seems like a real character.
Actually, it seems that